everyone. Hello, 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 and welcome to another Tuesday live stream artist chat here on Instagram. It's so great to have you with us. It's of course a lovely day outside, so if you're outside and not watching this, I can't blame you. It is beautiful, and here in Canada anyways, it's really nice to enjoy this weather once it's here. But if you are here and you're tuning in to watch today's artist chat, thank you so much for being here. If you can't stay for the whole thing, that's okay too. It will be archived and up on Instagram for everyone to watch. Welcome, folks. I'm so glad that you are here. We have an artist today that I've only recently met this past year, someone who is already showing their heart and their art to the world, putting their intentions out there to create something really beautiful for our creative community. Of course, I'm talking about Kate Newell, and not only a multidisciplinary artist, but the founder of the New Studio Collective, a project that has popped up in the last few months that I'm so excited to learn more about myself and to shine a light on for any folks out there in the community who might be creatives looking for other folks to connect with who can support their work, be there to walk alongside them in their journey as a professional, or who knows, even just someone making art for the heck of it. Well, before I get into it too much, why don't we just invite Kate on so we can connect and learn more about it right from the source, okay? So let's see. Let's go live. Hello, welcome. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, so good now that you're here. It's so wonderful to connect with you here. Thank you so much for making time for us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, you could be outside today too, enjoying this fine weather. So I'm frankly astonished that anyone is here. Thank you so much.
I know. I know, it's so beautiful. I can't believe it.
Now,
So excited.
I gave a super brief introduction. Can you share with our audience a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure.
Yay.
So, right now I am in my final year at Durham College. I'm in the Fine Art Advanced program. And so, yeah, like you said, I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I like to call myself that because I kind of like to dip my toes into everything. And I grew up loving music and performance and all of that. But right now, I am mostly oil painting. I've kind of been honing in those skills the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell, I guess.
I'm so excited for you. Everything that lies ahead for you. But I also love this new term, which is fairly recent, I think, within the last decade, of a multidisciplinary artist, someone who doesn't feel like they have to limit themselves to one medium, one modality. I love that folks are embracing that now.
Me too.
Now, before we dive into all the awesome things about who you are and where you're at right now, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you. And you mentioned, that you've participated and engaged in other creative endeavors. When did you first know that you were an artist?
For sure. So like every artist, I've been creative since I was out of the womb. But growing up, I think I was more, sorry about my lighting, by the way. I don't know.
You look fine to me. Don't worry.
Okay, good. But yeah, so I was more into music. I was a singer. I took piano lessons from age like 4 on. And I was a dancer, but kind of in my own time, I did like I loved to color when I was young. I loved to like draw and doodle and that kind of thing, but I never really took that part of like art seriously. Kind of until high school, and then I kind of, well, I shouldn't say not until then, because I did do painting,
Yeah.
Painting classes and stuff, and so I did dip my toes into it, but it wasn't until high school that I really realized that visual art was something that I loved and I wanted to pursue and learn more about and kind of, get my hands on different mediums and stuff like that. And then these past few years, I'd say probably like 5 or 6 years that I've been in Ontario, it has just been really clear to me that this is what I was meant to do. This is what I'm gonna do. So, yeah.
Decided to go for it. Now
Yeah, totally.
So you mentioned when you were in Ontario. Does that mean you've not always lived here?
Yeah. Yeah. So I moved here like I said, I think it's 6 years this August, from Newfoundland. So I grew up in Newfoundland, born and raised. I was there till I was 18.
Wow.
And then I decided, you know, bye. I'm just gonna go. So I, yeah, hopped over to Ontario, and the rest is history, I guess.
Wow. Is that something, was there, and like, and I'm just being nosy now, so feel free not,
Oh,
was there a reason, like, why the move from the East Coast to,
yeah, my boyfriend at the time
Mhm.
had family in Ajax, and he had decided that he wanted to go to Durham. Um, so I was kind of like, yeah, you know what? Like, there seems like there's lots of opportunity up there. It seems like I could kind of like start over. I'm from a smallish town.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, I just decided to hop on the opportunity with him and come up here.
That's a big move.
It was huge. And, it's still in Canada, so it's not like huge, but
Sure.
the culture shock,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It really is. Yeah.
Anyone who's ever, I've only ever been out, Halifax, I think is the farthest east I've got, but I have a lot of Newfoundlanders in my life. And yeah, to think about like Newfoundland and Ontario, definitely two different worlds.
Very, yeah.
Yeah. When you moved here, so that was for college as well, to pursue the fine arts at Durham
Yeah,
or prior?
not at first. So I didn't really have a plan. Like I had toyed with going for entrepreneurship. My last few years in high school, I was kind of thinking maybe I'll do music and become a music teacher, something of that sort. So I didn't really have a plan. I thought I would just come up and work for a little bit. So I did that. And then I actually went to hair school.
Oh,
So, which was awesome. And it was, a creative outlet, and I could kind of start expressing that like artistic side of myself. But then when I got into that industry, like it just wasn't, it wasn't quite for me. So then I decided to go back to school for fine arts.
fantastic. And for folks who don't know, and maybe there was another school in between, but we're talking about Durham College Fine Arts here, yeah?
Yes.
Ah,
Yes.
fantastic. Which is how I met you, through Danny Crosby's community collaboration class.
Yes. Oh, Danny, she's fantastic.
I know, I know. Shout out to Danny Crosby. Uh,
Yes.
there's so much that has gone over, like, over the past year. I'm just trying to think. I've talked to a lot of students about what it's been like to go to school during the pandemic. If you're an artist, what that's like to be a creative person.
Mhm.
I think sometimes people have used artists either work alone in like sort of this solitary way in a studio kind of environment, or
Mhm.
alongside others, getting feedback from people all the time. What's it been like this year working with others in this virtual space, not really having an opportunity to connect,
Yeah.
or even maybe to have their own studio space to work in?
Yeah. Well, that's a big thing. Like I know a lot of artists in my program, and myself included, like I'm working in a corner in my little basement apartment, But yeah, like you said, I think a lot of artists are okay working alone, but there's this missing piece that you don't like. It's really hard when you can't connect with other artists. So even if you are an artist that likes to work alone a lot, like I definitely am. I'm a homebody all the way through. I'm
Yeah.
quite quiet. I love being alone, but it's hard because you can't get that feedback. You can't get that person to person connection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then even posting a photo is very different than seeing the art in person, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's been hard, but I think it's also good because we're kind of creating space online um, for artists to connect with each other. And I don't think I would have come up with New Studio if it wasn't for that.
Okay. So
What a segue.
let's dive in. There's so much we can talk. We'll start.
I know.
Uh, for folks who might be watching who aren't familiar, there is a new out there for creatives. It's called the New Studio Collective. You are the founder of it, yes?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about why, how it all came about, what your dreams are for it, everything, just everything.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think it is really important to talk about like the why because it makes the whole idea make a lot more sense, I think.
Okay.
Um, so I think I have to start by talking about my own mental health because that's kind of where it all stems from. So, I always kind of struggled with depression and anxiety. I never really knew, never had a diagnosis or anything.
Yeah.
But then, luckily in the past 2 years, I have found a doctor that I've been working with, and I'm feeling great. And so once I kind of came out of that, I realized that like I'm learning who I am again, and I'm kind of like meeting myself for the first time, if you will. Um, and to do that during a time where, you're kind of at home, you're not able to interact with other people, it
Mhm.
was hard because it was like I had this fog being lifted and I was ready to like dive in and make all these connections and like, finally be myself and like, you know, throw myself into my workable force. But I wanted a community to do that with, and I hadn't really been able to create that community
Mm.
because of my mental health holding me back.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I kind of started thinking, like, how do I take this, like, new sense of self and this new, like, motivation? How do I create a community when I'm not able to, go to the studio and be like, hey guys, like I'm feeling so much better. Let's chat. And so that's kind of where the idea came from. I thought if I can't do it in person, why not do it online? And I'm sure there are other emerging artists, local artists, probably artists in my program that are feeling some of the same thing. Maybe not so heavy on the mental health, but feeling that lack of connection, that lack of community, and that can be hard on your mental health. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's an important thing for artists to talk about because, yeah, I mean, ideally, oh boy, I hope there are folks out there who don't have any issues with mental health. I've heard they exist. I, for example, am not one of those people. I move from day to day doing the best I can, using all the tools I've gathered throughout my lifetime. And I have had a lot of privilege to help me gather those tools as well, right? And I know there are people out there who haven't had that, who aren't at that place yet. But
Mhm.
to continue these conversations, or even to create space where conversations can occur about that, I think, at least from my perspective, is so, so important for artists and creative individuals out there.
I agree. And one thing that I hear time and time again is like that tortured artist trope, right? And so, oh, well, you're an artist, you're gonna have mental health issues. Oh, you're
Mhm.
gonna be depressed, like all of this. And it's kind of like, well,
Yeah,
for all those years that I wasn't making art, I was also not feeling well.
yeah.
Like, is there a correlation there? I think there might.
I know. Yeah. There's some
Yeah,
myth of the tortured artist being a good thing that I think has confused so, so many people. Oh,
absolutely.
hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm seeing that. Dawn. Hey there. Yeah, tell me more of this mental health thing. Right?
What is that? Yeah.
There's this sense of sometimes that we can't create unless we are in pain, because for so long there's been this strangely cultivated connection between artists and unwellness, but that's not the case. I'm like you. My worst, darkest times are I'm paralyzed in those times.
Absolutely. And like that's not to say that we don't, because I think where the miscommunication comes in is that we use those feelings and emotions and those hard times to create art.
Yeah,
We use it as a catalyst, but it's not why we create art, or it's not why we're a good artist, or
yeah,
you know whatever. And I also think it's important to keep in mind that like you can make art when you're feeling not so great,
yeah,
and it can be ugly, and that's fine too,
yeah.
because that's part of it. It's part of of getting it out and getting it onto the canvas.
Yeah. And that if we take care of ourselves, if we can, I suppose, be brave enough to step into that path, like, or onto that path to reach out for supports when we need them, it doesn't mean that our creativity will suffer. We won't lose
Yeah,
anything by taking care of ourselves.
absolutely. If anything, you'll gain something because, you're gaining insight into those emotions, and
Mhm.
that's going to be a great art piece someday.
Yeah, yeah. We can make meaning of it as we go forward when we can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when I remember seeing the description for the new studio collective, and I think it was I just loved seeing that being like a main part of the description of the group, acknowledging that mental health would be a part of the discussions you might have or a reason for this group existing. Because as soon as you set that up, it gives permission to people to be out there, to join, knowing that they can talk about it if they want. They can bring it to the work if they want. It doesn't have to be the only thing that's there.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah, that's very important to me, is like creating that space. Like, I don't want anyone to think, "Ooh, can I talk about that in the collective? Can I bring that up?" Like, yes, there is space for that. Like, I want you to. I want to talk about that. And if there is, something triggering to somebody, like, we'll deal with that when that comes. But I think it's very important, especially among creatives, to talk about those things.
yeah, I mean, I would hope everywhere and in every group, in every platform, every possible area.
Yeah.
But I think this is another area where perhaps artists can lead by example and model how to have conversations that matter about ourselves, about the darker, more uncomfortable things, that we're working through. Uh, and we can also make meaning of it through these extraordinary things we create. And there's a lot of hearts coming up in the conversation for you throughout so far. So I think there's a lot of folks out there who are also equally excited to see this.
Good, good. I can't wait to talk to you all. So definitely messaging.
Excellent, excellent. Now, in talking about this, I can't, I wanted to wait a little bit longer, but I want to talk to you about the painting you shared with us.
Yeah.
Because when I look at it, I'm seeing things that I can relate to, really, really powerful, powerful dark moments and uncomfortable things presented in a beautiful way. Can you tell us a little bit about that piece and how it relates to New Studio and where you are
Yeah.
in your life as an artist?
I would love it first if you told me what you got from it.
Okay, so just on when I look at it, what I see it seems a self-portrait
Mm-hmm.
in three parts, three aspects. So I see, and if I put myself, in the person of that painting, if I kind of jump into it for a moment, there's me whispering to me, and so one person to the side, this person in the chair looking straight out, and then there's a person in the corner who is also the subject of the painting. I feel like there's this chain reaction of something going on. Now, the chain reaction, at one point when I looked at it, I was like, that's my negative self-talk. That's my inner critic tearing me down. And this is me in the center trying to hold my ground and hold my space and just, find balance within that struggle, the tension between giving in and, breaking through or breaking down. And then another time when I looked at it, though, I was like, well, maybe it's not that. Maybe one is kind of this being in this space, this dark space, and making space for that sometimes we do need to be in the corner. Sometimes we do need to just curl up and blanket nest and just let everything go. And maybe what's being said, what's being whispered by that, that other aspect of self is maybe not so negative. Maybe it's something positive and encouraging. I'm not sure. It depends when I look at it. I can see both things.
Yes. Okay. I love that. I
Oh,
love that.
all right.
It is all of those things.
Okay.
It one of my main goals with this piece was to let the viewer decide and let the viewer kind of create the narrative, the environment, whatever. So yeah, I love that. But so for me, the the idea behind the piece was my battle and journey with mental health, my identity, and my relationship with home.
Mm.
and also that, like, the way that that affects my mental health. So that pattern in the background is representative of Newfoundland. There are pitcher plants in there, which is the provincial flower. There's some bake apples and partridge berries. So it's a subtle way of tying it into where I grew up and how that affects the way that I think, the way that I move and grow through life, and how it affects my mental health. But then the figures, um, they're a self-portrait, obviously. Um, um, and so, yeah, like you said, that middle figure for me, that represents like the what I show or what I give to the outside world. So even for myself, it kind of changes every time I look at it. So sometimes I look at her and she's very, like, I wanted her to look directly at you. I want her to kind of be,
It's direct. Yeah.
yeah, I wanted her to be very demanding, like, you have to look at me, you have to listen to me, kind of thing. But sometimes I feel like she's kind of sad. She's not doing great. She's maybe putting on a face. And then other times it's like, yeah, this is who I am. This is me. I'm good. This is who I'm gonna present to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then the figure to the side is kind of like the stripped back version. So she's kind of, maybe telling the figure in the middle, like, you don't actually feel like that. You're not actually feeling that good. They think you're all, or they think you're putting on a mask, or they think you're whatever. Um, and then, yeah, you kind of take off another layer, and then it's that, like, very inner part of yourself, um, that holds, like, all of those deep dark emotions that you don't necessarily want to share,
Mm.
but they're also not entirely dark always. Like, I don't know if that sentence made sense, but
Yeah.
like, they're helpful. You need to approach those things. You need to address um your childhood, where you grew up, how it affects you, um and all of those thoughts that come along the way. Um so yeah. It's a very long description.
I,
um
it's how big is the piece? Because like you were saying earlier, through photographs and social media, it's kind of difficult to get the full impact of the
Very.
created. So is it?
Yeah, it's large. It is 4 feet high, by like 4'11" ish.
No,
The figures are just a bit smaller than life size.
that's awesome. Wow.
It it definitely packs a punch when you see it in person. I think it's it is striking online, and I'm very proud of it, but when you are standing in front of it, I think it says a lot more.
Well, even displayed on social media, it still is so powerful and very filmic, I think too. It conveys a story in a very direct, and it like just pulls you into the piece. I'm not sure how folks feel who've seen it themselves. Feel free to share in the comments. Um, but definitely filmic. That's one way I would describe it.
Oh, good, I like that.
Oh yeah. I can't wait to see it in person though, because you're right. I think that would just be incredible. How
Yeah,
will it be displayed? I know is it part of your
it's part
graduating?
of my thesis. Yeah, so in the third year of the fine arts program, they do, I'm sure you know, but for folks who might not,
Yeah.
they do, a little thesis show. It's kind of like it's getting you ready to do a real thesis, if you go on to university or whatnot.
Mhm.
But yeah, the idea is to create a body of work. So that's my main piece, and then ideally it'll be hung on the wall. I don't know if we're going to get to that point during the pandemic, but it would be hung on the wall. And there are a couple other paintings that go with it. A couple of landscapes, another little portrait, and
Mm.
a window. So eventually, hopefully, I'll have that all displayed, so you'll get a good idea of like the overall um, message of my body of work or my
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. And in the meantime, however else it's displayed, please keep us up to date and we can let our let folks know in the community. Because I think it's important during this time more than ever to support artists that are out there and to let them know they're not alone. They haven't been creating in vain, which is one of the reasons why we do these chats, just to shine a light on you, but also perhaps introduce you to other community members who might not have otherwise had a chance to meet you. Um, yeah, I think it's such an important thing. Audience, I know every artist has a different relationship with the idea of audience, but we do create to share it, even if that is a very difficult process for us. What is that process like for you, putting your art out into the world?
Yeah, it was hard at first. It's, really hard to get started. And then kind of when you get going, in today's day and age, you're kind of labeled a content creator, right?
Yeah.
Um, which, I don't hate. It makes sense. I am creating content, but I think it kind of takes away from the artist aspect. But at the same time, I'm the type of person who hates labels, so like I don't really care. But yeah, that being said, I think it's hard when you're kind of like battling that, am I a content creator? Am I an artist? Am I creating content for my audience? Or am I creating work for myself? But yeah, I kind of got to a point where I was like, I'm just gonna try to be myself. I'm just gonna try to be myself and put,
Yeah.
Things that I enjoy on my social media and whatnot. And that's when I started to find my audience, I think.
Yeah.
And when you start to find your audience, I think it makes it a little bit more worthwhile or like just a little more clear,
Yeah.
you know? Um, yeah, but yeah, it's definitely hard. It's hard.
Well, especially when the content of your work is so, um, I mean, every artwork is personal to the person who has created it. But sometimes you're taking a bold step here, I feel, with linking it so directly to images and narratives that speak to mental health and the struggles of what we like every human might have with it. And using yourself as the subject again just takes it to another step.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful and bold thing to do. I'm so happy you're doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I hope I don't like to call myself a leader, but like I hope people start to I don't know, follow kind of what I'm doing. Like I want to see people opening up and talking about what they're comfortable with. Like I am I'm pretty comfortable with being open, so
Yeah.
it might seem crazy to a lot of people, but like to me it's kind of like, oh well, this is who I am. I would be talking to you about this regardless of if it was my work.
Mm.
But yeah, I think there's, finding that level of comfort and then I completely lost my train of thought there.
No, it's okay. I think the level of comfort in being uh, a level of comfort in being uncomfortable and acknowledging the discomfort that perhaps all of us feel, and
Yeah.
ties back into like in a really interesting way to that idea of like confronting or challenging this idea that we should be content and it should be a product and we're only one thing and we can only be one thing, so be that thing. We're all evolving every single day, changing, making new decisions and choices, and we fall back and we move forward. I think making space for the complexity of our experience in a really honest and transparent way is beautiful. And when we do that, we can perhaps, strip away some of the stigma, some of the shame that people feel, and
Yeah.
perhaps not being this strange idea of what perfect should be, which doesn't fit,
Absolutely.
but, perfectly imperfect,
Yeah.
being able to own that journey for ourselves.
Absolutely. And especially in this social media age, when you look at a grid and you're kind of seeing a life through rose-colored glasses, and that artist maybe is not necessarily giving you an insight into the behind the scenes, like the ins and outs of living of living, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to, show my audience that, like, my audience, my tiny audience, that I'm just a human. Like, I'm just making art. I'm not, you know, I yes, I'm creating products, but I'm just a person, just like you. I'm going through the same type of struggles, just like that celebrity with 10,000 followers that isn't talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We curate our experiences. So I think we can't possibly show everything online.
No, absolutely. And I'm not, for sure. There are definitely things I don't share. But yeah, like even just that little insight into other people's lives, I think is very important.
Yeah.
Especially now.
Yeah, and it sparks new conversations, and it sparks re-sparks dormant conversations. And, and if someone can see themselves in your work and see that, it's okay to experience that, I'm not alone, that's a beautiful thing. That's a really
Absolutely.
Can I return to the new studio collective for a little bit?
Of course.
Okay, because we've talked a little bit about the why and how it came about. What are your hopes and dreams for this group? And if folks out there have questions about it, please feel free to ask. I think this will be the start of a conversation.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'd love to learn more about what you hope it can do for people out there.
For sure. So it keeps evolving, honestly, because I'm getting input from the community, I'm getting input from artists, and it does keep evolving. But at the baseline, my hope is that I can create with other artists a safe space where we can chat about the ins and outs of being an artist, and it's less so about the selling of the art, but that's important too. But yeah, my hope is that we create a community where we can have a space to, I'm just saying the exact same thing I just said. No, but I want to do things like have a monthly crypt, for example.
Okay.
Where we all kind of just get together and talk about what we've been doing for the month, like a stress-free critique and things like that, like little workshops where we can talk about e-commerce as an artist, and things like that. And then just like a platform, maybe I'm thinking this will probably take place on Discord. This is kind of in the future. But yeah, just a space where we can be a community and help each other out, and share resources, share opportunities, like all of that stuff, and just have people to fall back on. Like I just want the artists that decide to join us to know that they can come to me no matter what. It doesn't have to be about art. It can be about their work. It can be about their life. I just want them to know that myself and the other artists in the collective are there for them. Like that's the goal.
Another creative resource in community where people can connect with other like-minded creators, but perhaps learn about other artists out there that they perhaps people that they might not have had the chance to meet otherwise.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm thinking on a local scale right now, but eventually I would love this to be Canada-wide. That might be a little ambitious, but
big. You start small,
yeah.
big. That's an art hive model.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just so you can create connections and meet people that you wouldn't have the opportunity to otherwise.
Well, I know one of the things I've learned from students who've graduated in the past, or other emerging or young artists out there in the world working, it's difficult without those connections. Like, it's one of the reasons I think going to school can be such an important thing. It's not necessarily because going to school, like, makes you a better artist, or, you know, it's sometimes the connections that you make while you're there, because, you know, once you're sort of launched into the idea of the real world, it's more difficult to maintain those connections. And even if you have one or two people you can reach out to who know what it is to be going through the same kind of things that you're going through, that can be something that helps you through.
Definitely. Yeah, that was actually another, I can't believe I didn't mention that, you know, so many things going on in my head. But yeah, that was another like reason that I started it, was that I was hearing from people in my program. They were like, oh no, what do I do once I leave? Like, we have a group chat, but we only really use it when there's an assignment or something like that, you know? And then for myself, the first year and a half-ish, I was still dealing with my mental health problems,
Yeah.
and still kind of coming out of that. And then when I finally did, we were locked down. So there was like that double um, kind of fear and like anxiety about, you know, not having that solid community that we were supposed to build during our time at school. You know, the past years would always say, oh, third year, like you guys become a family in third year. And we're like, oh no, okay.
Is in trouble. What's happening?
Yeah, oh no. So yeah, I kind of thought like if I could just start with my program and the people that I'm graduating with, if I could just make sure that we have each other when we leave,
Yeah.
you know, that would maybe be good. So then it kind of evolved into
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's so important. I think too, in the visual arts program, maybe extra important in the sense that because a lot of artists do create on their own anyways when you get, you know, when you're working professionally. So having that resource you can fall back on, someone you can reach out to. Yeah.
Absolutely. Even if it's just to be like, hey, does this look like a face? Does my portrait look like a face? Yeah, it does. Don't worry.
Having that, yeah, and being able to troubleshoot. I wonder even now, like even before the pandemic, I question whether or not there was a strong group, like I've been looking back through the living room and all the different comments we've had, at least in Oshawa, Durham region area. That seems to be a familiar phrase, like a familiar issue that we dance with, is like, how do we keep artists connected? What do we learn about, you know, how do we find out about events that are happening? Like even the nuts and bolts things about exhibits, events, you know, how to apply for this grant or that funding, whatever. And it seems so fragmented at times, even before the pandemic. So something like this, I'm hoping, yeah, we'll launch things. Look, what do we have here? Yes. So we again have an example there of something, someone, Alan 24. I would love some sessions about e-commerce and how your inner critic can hold you back from creating for the purpose of selling. Oh, that's a good conversation.
Big one. Yep. I'll be talking about that at some point for sure.
Yeah. And again,
Yeah.
really interesting dynamic that I think all creators face. And I imagine even with starting the new collective, I wonder if this happened, like we question ourselves, do I have the right to do this? Who am I to step out and put this into the world? Who, you know?
Absolutely. It's funny that you said that because right before this, I was talking to my boyfriend and I was like, you know, who am I to go on and do an art talk? Like, I'm not even graduated yet, you know? And he's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, you're an artist, you know? So, yeah, I think it's a lot of it is just doing it and just kind of saying, like, to your inner critic, saying, okay, shut up. I'm not listening to you right now. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, you could be right. This could be a disaster, but I'm just going to go for it.
Interesting thing though, like what does a disaster look like? That's the other thing that I have to remind myself of. Like, does a disaster look like I don't sell something? Okay, well, that's not the worst thing in the world. I don't sell it. I can sell it another day. Or
exactly.
Even like being able to bring down all those big, huge, you know, overwhelmingly ambiguous worries down to size, and to be able to say, nah, actually, it's not that bad. Like this is
it's not that big of a deal. You know? Yeah. For sure.
Just challenging that inner critic. How did you learn how to do that? And do you have any tips for folks who might be watching?
Yeah, it's a hard one. It's so hard. I think it's important to share. That was probably the biggest lesson for me, is that your inner critic is gonna keep telling you all of those negative things
Yeah.
if you don't have somebody saying, "Oh, that looks great."
Yeah.
You know? So if even if it's just sharing with your family, you know they're biased, you know they're gonna tell you it looks great. But, that can kind of make it a little bit easier to post it to Instagram and, wait for a comment from somebody that you don't know that says,
Yeah.
"Hey, that looks great." Um,
Or even being
so yeah,
to share and talk, speak honestly about the fact that we have that, those inner critics to begin with, that it's not just, you're not the only one. I'm not the only one. This is something all of us struggle with or dance with every single day.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Even the most successful artists,
Oh my,
they definitely have a little critic.
I think larger than little, I would suggest. And
Yeah.
more than, I mean, I've said it before, but myself, I have a whole choir of inner critics chime in whenever they want to. And so it's an on,
Yeah.
I never quite get rid of them, but they get more manageable over time. And part of
You
the
have to learn to work with them.
it exactly, it's a relationship. And I think
Exactly.
just thinking about e-commerce and things like that and putting ourselves out there, it can feel so vulnerable.
Yeah,
And feel vulnerable to share artwork about things that matter to us. It can share, if it can feel vulnerable to share artwork, period.
yeah,
Like there's so many fears that we have because we care about what we do, and we're just hoping someone else will value it as much as we do.
for sure. Yeah,
But building
yeah,
those relationships is the key. I think that's just revisiting that earlier piece you had. I mean, that's how we prevent that feeling of becoming a product or just being content. We build
absolutely.
relationships with ourselves, relationships with our work, relationships with whoever's out there.
Yeah. And you're allowed to dispute that inner critic too. Or even those nasty comments that you might at some point get, you know? You're allowed to dispute that and be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if you think it looks bad because I like it, you know? And you're allowed to make ugly art too. Oh, that's something I love.
I do. I really, so okay. Tell me what your favorite thing about it, because yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, I love it. I love getting home after, a long day.
Yeah.
I'm mad at something. The traffic made me upset on the way home or something like that.
Yeah.
And I just open a book, a sketchbook, and grab whatever's laying around and just like get the emotions out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what comes out of the tip of that pen for me. It's almost like a brain dump. When people say do a brain dump in your journal or whatever, it's kind of like that. Like just getting it all out. It doesn't matter what the outcome is. I'm probably not going to show it to anybody anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of an act of self-care, I guess.
Making
Making
space.
ugly art.
Yeah. And acknowledging the ugliness or the difficult things. Yeah. Letting the art hold the hard stuff, or letting the art
Yeah.
hold the ugly stuff when we don't want to. And I don't know, have you ever found that through those just pure, like, because you're not worried about people seeing them or worried about sharing them, how many times do you find that just allowing that process to happen actually leads to an exciting idea, or to a piece of work that you're really excited about?
So all the time. All the time. Yeah. Oh, and I think that's really important too, like not even just making ugly art, but just getting everything out of your head and onto paper, because you can think about an idea and think like, oh, that's not gonna fly. That's not gonna look good on paper. But then, you write it down or you sketch it out and it's like, oh, wow, okay, I can do something with that. Just getting it out of your head is really helpful.
Out of your head onto the paper or into the song or the whatever you might be making. Who knows? Who
Yeah.
cares? Any modality that it might be. Yeah.
Exactly.
Deliberate.
Scream it at your significant other, whatever. Just get it out of your head.
I think too, what we're doing is we're documenting moments that we can return to. Like if only kept inside, there's no perspective on.
Yeah.
that. So getting it out, we can revisit it, we can shut it away, we can put it on a shelf or, underneath a stack of whatever that's on your floor. Not to
Absolutely.
have any of that in my office, but there,
Hey, we're artists. It's
yeah.
okay.
Okay, yeah, fine. There's so much mess around now. You have no idea. But it lets you revisit it when you feel like ready to do that. It doesn't, just because you create something, it doesn't mean that it has to stay with you right now and be by your side.
Yeah.
Permission to put it away, permission to come back to it in a year and a half.
Yes. When you've had time to process too, that's important. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, when you're going through a hard time and you can't think about creating art.
Yeah.
You hang on to that for a year later when you can.
Yeah.
You can make something from it,
It'll be there, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's important to get it out so that it's not in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When things get so stopped up, bottled up, stuck inside, that's not, oh, I know that place. I don't want to go back there.
No, we don't want to be there.
Yeah, don't want to live there. But what other, I think it'd be nice to know for other folks who might be watching or listening to, what other resources have you found helpful in moving forward, not only with your mental health and self-care, but also in keeping you creative, maintaining that spark that do what you do?
Yeah, I think it's really important to find other outlets. So, like I said, oil painting is kind of my main thing right now. But at the beginning of the pandemic, I thought, okay, I need something like another creative outlet that I can kind of go to when I'm feeling stressed out about, creating that perfect piece or creating the finished product or whatever.
Yeah.
So things like I picked up sewing, hand sewing, just doing alterations and stuff. And things like that, like other things where I'm using my hands, but I'm not necessarily making something to show or whatever it may be. And then I've always been a firm believer in singing in the shower or in your car at the top of your lungs. It just always makes me feel so much better. But yeah, and then, some more serious ones like at the beginning of the pandemic, BetterHelp. I'm sure everyone's probably heard about it by now, but things like that, there are resources available for you to connect with a professional if you need it. And they actually have financial aid too, so you can find places where you can get that help, even if it's just some articles, on the internet. But yeah, things like that.
That's awesome. Now, I don't want to keep you too much longer. You've been here for almost an hour now and shared so much. It's been amazing. It does.
I could keep going, so.
There's so much that we could talk about. But in wrapping up, is there anything, I mean, that seems like a wonderful thing to remind folks of and to share with folks, but is there anything else you'd like to say to people who are out there? Any kind of last thoughts you'd like to leave them with?
I don't know. I mean, contact me. I want to talk to you. Check out New Studio and check out my Instagram, and if you want to talk about, anything, something we said here today, something that's on one of those profiles, something completely off topic, I want to talk to you too. So please message me. But yeah, just keep creating. Make that ugly art. I want to see it. I love it. Yes.
Oh, I love that too. Thank you so much. So folks can message you at the New Studio Collective, which sounds like it's still in a process of forming, but that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And yeah, it could change. It could change depending on what.
Yeah, if you have ideas, if you have an idea for me, please. But yeah, keep an eye out for the launch. Hopefully that'll be happening soon. I don't have a definitive date, but hopefully, early June.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited. Keep us posted.
Oh, for sure.
And of course, we'd love to have you back too. Perhaps maybe one day host a Thursday night live stream or something, and you can answer more questions if you like.
Oh, I would love that. I would definitely love that.
That's great. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you for making time for us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Well, it's the beginning of something cool. I can't wait to see how things move and grow forward.
For sure. I can't wait to update you.
Okay. Well, here,
All right.
go enjoy the sunshine. Thanks so
I
much.
will. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
And folks, that was Kate Newell. Thank you so much for joining us today for this live stream Instagram artist chat. If you have more questions about the New Studio Collective or Kate's work or upcoming exhibits, because I imagine that thesis project that she's working on at Durham College will probably be exhibited online somewhere. So feel free to message Kate, and you know what, drop a line to the New Studio Collective to learn more about how you can become a member of it, perhaps how you can support it and help it in its growth. It's so important to stay connected with other creatives in your community, wherever you might be in the world. And of course, to expand your community. It doesn't always have to be in the hometown that you live in. Let's connect. Let's keep sharing our resources and shining a light on the skills and gifts we have, and talking about the stuff that fuels our work, the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's keep those conversations going so that we can have more wonderful, I was going to say content, but I don't mean that. I think deeper, healthier, more vibrant relationships with one another that can fuel more beautiful, exciting work. Yeah, that's what I mean. But again, huge thanks to Kate for joining us today. And until we can connect and create with one another again in person, I look forward to connecting and creating with you right here online. The next time will be tomorrow, actually, Wednesday. Every Wednesday on Facebook from 2 to 3:30. You can join us for a pop-up art studio on our Facebook page where I'll be creating in a live stream. And you can continue chatting and connecting with other creatives and sharing links or images to what you're working on. Again, just another opportunity to shine a light on what you do and to share and celebrate the work that we're doing, whether it's creative work or other stuff too. But again, I'm going to let you go. It's a beautiful day outside, at least today, in this moment, while we're live streaming. So get out and enjoy some sun, folks. Come on. It's beautiful. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care of yourselves, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye.